Go ahead.
I just wanted a little clarification.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone else.
Yeah.
So can you say more about high responsiveness and low responsiveness? Who's responding to what?
Low demands and high responsiveness. So low demands meaning I'm not going to add a lot to your plate because you're a kid and I don't need to push you that much. And high responsiveness. Oh, are you uncomfortable? You're anxious to meet. Let me help address that for you. Here's a cookie, or here's some extra TV time. Let's make things easy for you. Does that help?
Yeah, responding to the child.
Right, responsive to the child's stated what they believe their needs are, and responding to their stated needs, not what their actual needs may be. Yep.
So then it's also low demands on the child. So
Correct.
like both of that is towards the kid.
Yep. So, and both these two, permissive and authoritarian, can create challenges in a conflicted culture because from an authoritarian perspective, I have little trust and I'm pretty guarded because my emotional needs aren't kind of important, and so I'm going to take care of myself and close myself off. I'm vigilant. I'm susceptible to engaging in a high level of conflictedness with others who don't sync up with my perspective. And from a permissiveness standpoint too, I don't understand when people don't agree and don't do what I want, and so I'm susceptible to walking into a conflict in that way too.
So the authoritative model of leadership, we would say in this parenting styles, the parents are nurturing, responsive, and supportive. So they're listening, they're getting a child's perspective, but they also have firm limits for their children. They also set the boundaries of behavior. They attempt to control children's behavior by explaining the rules. This is why we are doing this. This is our family values. This is where this information is coming from. They discuss and they reason. They also listen to a child's viewpoint, but don't always accept it. I think that's kind of a key too. They listen. They will respond. They will understand. I see where you're coming from, and here's some other ways we can look at this. And we're still your leader, we're still your parent, we still have these family values, we still have these things that need to go on in our household.
So these are why we focus on this, because we're in a divisive culture, a hyper-vigilant state. Young people are susceptible with these other models of leadership to engaging in that divisive culture. Even more so. So we have the ability to influence them by activating that authoritative leadership in whatever capacity we're in. High responsiveness and meeting a demand that's developmentally appropriate and appropriate for the situation in which we are an authority figure for them, whether it's a school, a grandparent, a parent, whatever, doctor, whatever authority that we have. So part one of authoritative parenting, nurture and support. We talked about a little bit of this the last time we met, but really focus on minimizing advice giving. Just listen, just take it in at first, right? Active listening skills. Your language matters. My daughter points this out to me all the time. That I often take her words and sort of turn them, what she characterizes as against her, right? So being really cautious that I'm just reflecting back what I'm trying to hear and seeking to understand, not to convert, which is what she's giving me feedback that I'm trying to do for her. Be really conscientious about our nonverbals. The graduate level textbooks talk about like 76% of our communication comes through non-verbally, and we pick all of that up at an unconscious level. So be really conscientious, right? When we're talking to a young person, getting down on their eyesight level, or if they're bigger than us, maybe using a chair to get on their level too. But be really cautious and conscientious of the power dynamic, right, as adults that we have, and how our nonverbals can convey that power dynamic. negotiate a planned time. This is important because, like I said, our hypervigilant state, if we engage anybody, but if we engage a young person in a moment in which they have not had time to prepare, that vigilance that's already there is going to show up even more so. And then in these difficult times that we're living in, it requires really focusing on this part one of authoritative parenting, nurture, and support. Part two, so challenge, some ways to kind of think about challenge. Young people may look at the big picture and be overwhelmed by it. The world is burning. The globe is folding in on itself. And look at the help them see the little things, right? I keep reminding my children to composting and recycling is big at our house. So I keep reminding them, one Kleenex at a time in the compost matters. Turning off they leave the water on all the time. Does this happen in your house? Leave the water on. Turning the water off is important for something we can do for the world, right? Anybody heard of hypermiling? Anybody know what that is? Driving as efficiently as possible. I'm notorious for it. Using my brakes very little and trying to coast and regulate my driving so that I'm minimizing the gas consumption. My kids think it's stupid. Part of what I'm doing perhaps saving us money, but also it's about sharing a message that this is how I'm trying to minimize the impact to the environment. Right now we have a gas-powered vehicle, and so this is how I'm trying to minimize what I can do to control, right? So helping them look at one small thing that they can do. One relational experience at a time. Right? They globalize all these problems. How can you, with your community, with your friends, with people in your world, have an experience that can be life-giving, even when things are difficult? Right? Let go. Let God. Right? God is in charge, helping remind that God is leading the way here. Our job is to be in it together and to listen to where God is moving us and be responsive to that. And perpetual problem. So thinking about the Gottmans, John and Julie Gottman are relationship experts in our field. And one of the things they talk about is masters of relationship, people who experience relationship very successfully. One of the things they do different from those who struggle in relationships is they characterize the difference between them as the issue when there's a challenge, right? The difference is the issue, not the other person. So people, when struggling with a relationship, will characterize the other person. This person is the spawn of Satan. Okay, that's the real problem. Well, so the way I look at it is they see this differently than you do, and that creates a lot of friction for you too. Right? So help characterize that you're reframing the problem to be about the difference. Unless they really are the spawn of Satan, then I guess you can support that narrative. And then positionality impacts perspective. Positionality. So I am a white male in my home church is a Catholic church. White male in a Catholic church in South Minneapolis who's a marriage and family therapist in a heterosexual marriage with three children of mixed racial descent. That position, middle class, that position greatly impacts the way that I view the world. Right? My wife experiences the world from a very different perspective. My kids, because they're biracial, experience the world from a very different perspective. Right? And so helping kids understand that. My children have actually done a nice job with me, helping me understand that, because they've shared with me, you don't get it. You don't live in this body. You are a white person. You can't understand what it's like for me to experience the kind of treatment that people treat me with. And they're right, and that's been really helpful for me. So helping our kids too to understand from the position of people who are not you, they're going to look at it differently. Oops, I skipped. Helping them look at, the future is beyond now. For most of us, we see lots of pendulum swings over the course of our lives, right? And helping them realize that kids, they don't have a point of reference to know that the way systems work is they enter into difficulty and then they reorganize. And then they enter into difficulty and then they reorganize. That's how systems work. Right? If you think back to this time of the civil rights in the 60s, there was great turmoil and great change happening. And as that kind of solidified, things stabilized. Right? And then back into the Vietnam War, and things are difficult and chaotic. And then things stabilize. So there's a way that systems work to enter into chaos and then stabilize and reorganize. Focus on how you and your family can impact change based on your values. Again, they need to see that they can do something, right? That they can have an influence. Avoid conflict entrepreneurs. There was an author, Amanda Ripley, who wrote a book, High Conflict. There's a bio on too, but I can't remember it. She talked about conflict entrepreneurs as people who antagonize conflict, who are trying to activate our fear and our kind of revenge neural pathways, in large part, because they profit from it. Right? And so you think about the divergent media streams and those folks who are very good at activating that. And there may be some, whether or not there's some truth to what they're saying, the focus isn't necessarily the truth, it's on activating us in a way that deepens us in polarization. So it's avoiding the news streams and the people that try and create conflict, that actually profit off of conflict. Is this you or me? I can't remember. Sometimes we think, if I'm happy, I'm going to be grateful. But actually, there's some good indication that is not the case. That gratitude and gratefulness is actually the way to move towards a sense of happiness and contentedness. And so helping young people engage with that, because gratitude is connected to our parasympathetic nervous system too, right? That hypervigilant state that we're in constantly. When we connect to gratitude, we can get our bodies, we reduce cortisol levels, that stress hormone that gets activated and all the stressors that are going on around us. So if we can help our family, help our community, help young people to express and prioritize gratitude, we can help reduce the sympathetic nervous system, the limbic system, the system that keeps us vigilant, right, which keeps us in conflict or can keep us in a place of preparedness for conflict. And if we can help young people in particular, gain connection to that gratitude, we can reduce the anxiety and less like we're not primed to be activated in conflict as much.
Humor, laughter, playfulness. I love this because the shortest distance between two people is laughter. And I think that's something we also really remember, that parenting is hard. Doing this job is hard. I think one of my greatest things I did this year is my daughter went to college. And so all of our, there's a group of moms that all get together now once a month who have freshmen in college. And we all laugh. Because I don't know if any of you have, your kids go like this all the time. They're happy one day, they're sad one day, they're happy, And so we're able to get together and laugh. and just be like, this is hard to manage our kids from afar again, and hard to manage their transition. Something simple, but now our daughters they meet twice a month now on FaceTime all together, because we modeled that we need this transition piece. Because it's humor, especially not at someone else's expense, but can break down these barriers, can break down, you can cry, you can laugh, you can be with community, and how important that is in these hard times, right? I think this is a great quote. If you knew everyone's story, you would love them. You can't really hate anyone if you know everything that happened to them between their birth and now. Why they have become the way they become, why they have walls up or down. If you truly know someone, you'd get it. If you take the time to have that community with someone, if you take the time to just sit and laugh with them, you get it. Everyone has a story. This is Emma Stone, the Harry Potter. I thought.
What's the character's name?
I know, that is
Hermione.
Hermione.
Said that.
I know, she's pretty brilliant, right? So help your children be story. I can't say that well, aficionados, right?
Yeah.
It's good.
If
So
children can